Yellow paper on the back chair when you're walking in the door. There's also some other handouts for today's presentation. I think Lynn is handing those out right now. But please, grab a schedule on your way out. We have some great presentations coming up. Next week, in room 208, Dr. Steve Leish, sorry, I know I pronounced his name wrong, a professor in anthropology, will be presenting A Decade of Change in Vietnam, 10 years of research and work. But right now, I would like to introduce Ms. Rebecca Chodska. Rebecca is a student staff assistant in our office, and she's pretty integral in planning this series right now and is going to be doing all the introductions for this semester, so I just want to give her a first introduction. We really appreciate her help with this semester, and I'm going to let her introduce Ms. Denny for the presentation today. But thank you all for coming.
All right, welcome. Martha Denny is the Director of International Education at Colorado State University and has worked in international development and international education for more than 30 years. Her work focus has included international programs in higher education, international training, sponsored student programming, study abroad, and the integration of international perspectives into CSU programs. Research interests include reentry to the home culture, intercultural adjustment, and the adjustment of sponsored international students. Martha has worked in Swaziland, Russia, and Kenya, and traveled widely.
Thank you. Well, everyone, this is going to be fast and furious, so there are some handouts in the back. If you didn't get them, go back and pick them up. It might help you track. This is going to be a strange combination of things. Let me tell you what. I want to give you a little introduction to kind of the concepts of safety and security as they're being talked about in the international education field. For those of you who don't know, this is something that is really, in the last 5 to 10 years, has become a major issue because of 911 and all kinds of other things related to it. It's like happened in Pan Am 103 was full of study abroad students coming home from Germany when it was blown up over Lockerbie. That has precipitated a lot of discussion about issues of safety and security. So today we're going to talk about being a savvy traveler. I want to start out with some general ideas, move into more specifics, and then over here in this big table full of stuff, I brought a few things that are examples of the kinds of things I use for packing, or my husband and I, Lloyd's in the audience, we use for packing when we go, but we do it differently every time because after we do our research, we make a determination about what we're going to need, what's realistic, how long we're going to need it, where we're going. So here we go. I recently, thank you, took a look at this book. I participated in the State Department training on safety and security and study abroad in May in Washington, D.C., 2 years ago. And Ray Leckie was our primary presenter. He does training for State Department, and they're the ones who we're supposed to rely on when we have a problem abroad. So they've got a lot of experience knowing kind of what comes across the transom at the embassies and consulates abroad. So here is his model of what he calls the Leckie model for traveling, the travel-wise model. Let me point out what we've got here. His is this triangle. He considers that our motivation for travel is ultimately kind of the background for what we're doing. So, and then we have this overlapping circles of cross-cultural skills, personal and interpersonal skills, and security. All three of those are required to be a successful traveler. I have, however, added this big yellow circle, and that's called context. One of the things I know from my research in re-entry to the home culture, or in looking at what makes people successful when they go abroad, what makes them able to do a good job in their endeavors, has a lot to do with context. We can predict many things based on people's personalities, and there are all kinds of new instruments out there for measuring those things if any of you are interested. But context ultimately is one of the most important things. What do I mean by context? Anybody want to guess? Okay, let's just pretend the context is Switzerland. How worried do I need to be about security? Okay. Now, let's say context is Afghanistan. How worried do I need to be about security?
Don't go.
Don't go. Okay. Got it. Okay. So my point is, context is honestly almost everything. And what I want to talk about next is a few definitions that will kind of explain how, when we're thinking about this, our office is often in the unenviable position of having to review these programs going out from CSU and say, I don't think so, or, well, okay, if, or that sounds like a great idea. You know, and what kind of thinking goes into that? One, safety. That is the freedom from negative events that happen in everyday life. That would be like Katrina, you know, an earthquake, things like that. So we're safe, you know, when these other things don't impinge upon us. Security, on the other hand, is freedom from hostile acts. Crime, harassment, intimidation, discrimination, kidnapping, those kinds of things. So when we talk about safety and security, we're really talking about two different concepts. Threat, on the other hand, is a situation that puts one's safety and security in jeopardy. So you could have a threat from a natural disaster. You could have, like, the tsunami in Thailand. There were a lot of people who had a completely unpredictable threat. Nothing you can do about that except know how to respond. You can't stop the earthquake undersea. You can't stop the tsunami. So you just have to get the heck out of the way or climb to a high building or whatever. Same with Big Thompson Canyon flood. My husband and I were backpacking up at the top, so we weren't born yet. Back the night of the Big Thompson Canyon flood. What kind of signs popped up in the canyon after that event?
Climb to safety.
Climb to safety. That is exactly a situation where there is a threat, and you're learning what you can do to be safe, and part of that is training yourself. Risk is the assessment of the probability and consequences or impact of a threat. So some threats you're like, I can handle it. Other threats you're like, no way, Jose. Okay, so whatever it may be, you've got to constantly be balancing that act. The other thing is behavior, and that is the individual or group's words and actions in response to a stimuli that you encounter. So it's important to think about these things because Lecky's model, based on these years and years of working with the State Department and all the people who come into the embassy with their sad stories, include security awareness, cross-cultural skills, and emotional intelligence. This is very interesting because this is one area where we get a lot of pushback, I think, from groups going out. They're like, I don't need to know that stuff. I just have my ticket. I have my money. I'm going. I am doing my research. And we're like, yo, people, you need to understand this is a huge piece of the overall TravelWise model and your ability to respond appropriately so that you can stay safe. Personal and interpersonal capabilities. I love this. I'll mention it later. His comment is, you got the naturals and then you got the train wrecks. Okay? He said, you know, if you're a natural, you're the kind of person who's going to go do these things. You're going to kind of adapt. You're going to fit in. How many of you have ever known a train wreck? Anybody? Yeah. What do you think about when you think about the train wreck?
Becoming non-functional.
They become non-functional? Okay, good. What, others?
Try to stay away from them.
They're freaking out. They're forgetting their stuff. They're losing their passport. They don't, you know, they forget to tell their mom and dad or their parents or their family where they're going to be. The family starts to call everybody on earth to say, where are they, what are they doing? You know, you got people who just can't quite keep it together. And, you know, those are the people, maybe they're not the best choice, okay, for some of these activities. People, though, are reluctant to say, I'm not sure you're ready for this. Okay. The TravelWise model also looks at your personal and interpersonal capabilities. Have you got what it takes? Do you have the language if language is imperative for what you're going to be doing? Do you have the cross-cultural skills that we mentioned up here? Do you have kind of an ability